Having covered the first half of the chapter on supply and demand, let's have a look at the answers to the test questions. Here's the first question. We have demand curves here, and the question is which of the moves reflects an increase in demand. Increase in demand is a shift to the right. So depending on the options that you have for the answers, the increase is either a move from C to E, A, or B, or D, or a move from E, or from A, or from B to D. For example, one of the possible answers could be a move from A to D. A move from A to D implies that the demand curve shifts to the right. Next question on inferior goods. When the price of an inferior good falls, there are two effects that change the demand for this product. One is substitution effect. That's when things become relatively cheaper. Now this inferior good is relatively cheaper compared to another good, so people will switch from those other goods to this relatively cheaper good. That's like the pork and the beef example we had in the classroom. So these substitution effects will increase the consumption of inferior good when the price is lower. But on the other hand, the income effect will decrease the consumption of this product because it's inferior good. While the price falls, even though my income didn't change, I do feel richer. So as our income increases, as I feel richer, I don't have to buy something of lower quality, an inferior good. So substitution effect leads to increased consumption, income effect leads to decreased consumption, and a total effect will depend on the relative size, relative magnitude of these effects. Next question, what's the minimum supply price for the fourth gallon of ice cream? For the fourth gallon, we have a $5 minimum price. That's the minimum that the sellers are happy to charge. Next question, if the price of shoes rises, what's going to happen to demand curve and quantity demanded? Well, demand curve doesn't change. As you know, a price change means we'll move along the demand curve. And in that case, if the price is higher, the quantity demanded is lower. So no change for demand curve and a decrease in quantity demanded. Next question about relative prices. Long time ago, stove costed $300 and the fridge costed $1,500. Today, stove costs $600, a fridge costs $1,800. Which of the relevant relative prices have changed? Well, you will see that stove price has increased by a double, while the fridge price hasn't increased by a double. It increased by less than a double. So relatively speaking, stove is now more expensive. Relatively speaking, so relative price of stove has increased. Next, if Hobbes drinks milk tea only, so he must consume tea with milk. In that case, those are complements. They must go together as car and tires. So in that case, looking at the demand for tea, if the price of milk rises, the demand for tea decreases, drops, because those are complements in this case. Looking at tea and coffee, coffee is much more expensive right now. People will probably substitute from coffee into tea. Now looking at the tea market, the demand for tea will increase because coffee is much more expensive, because those two are substitutes. The question is, which of the following shifts the supply curve? In this particular question, the answer is the destruction of the crop. There is no broccoli as the crops are destroyed by a hurricane. And the last question, we're looking at supply of oils, and an increase in quantity of oil supplied, but not an increase in supply curve itself, not an increase in supply, just a quantity supplied. So we must move along the same supply curve. Is shown by one of the movements. So if we want to move along the curve with an increase in quantity, we need to move rightwards along the same curve. Depending on your options for your answers, it could be either a move from C to A, or from A to E, or from C to E.